walk through the garden, you gotta watch your back. Well, I beg your pardon.
It wasn't too long ago that if you wanted to fight the forces of evil in our society and the lies that help perpetrate them, there was only one career to choose: journalism. David Simon was a high school student in the Washington suburb of Bethesda, Maryland, when the country discovered Watergate. Like hundreds of young people in his generation, he was drawn to journalism's potential for telling truth to power. By 1982, after graduating from the University of Maryland, he was in the newsroom of one of America's legendary papers, the Baltimore Sun. His beat of choice was crime. Over the next 13 years, he covered the city's cops and courts, and he soon found a cover-up even bigger than Watergate. The harsh day-to-day reality lived by the people in the nation's poorest communities was consistently, systemically ignored by our most respected institutions, and few Americans seemed to notice.
When it came between explaining complicated and sophisticated systems and trying to say, this is what's going on, and if we change this or do that, or if we actually implement this policy, we can, but actually doing the hard work of looking at it systemically, there was no incentive to do it, and nobody did it. And that's true in Baltimore today, as when I started as a reporter, and I think it's true in America.
In 1988, he took a leave of absence from the Sun to embed himself with the Baltimore Homicide Squad. The result was his first book, Homicide: A Year on the Killing Streets, which won the 1992 Edgar Award for Best Fact Crime Book. That turned into a TV series called Homicide: Life on the Street. But as far as he was concerned, it didn't tell the whole story. The drug war in America's streets was destroying entire communities and a whole generation of young Americans, and it was also destroying American law enforcement.
So if you admire good police work, which I do, the drug war is heartbreaking to what it's done to the Baltimore Police Department, and not just through stat games, but through teaching a whole generation of cops how not to do criminal investigation.
David took a second leave in 1993 to research a new book with Ed Burns, a Baltimore detective whom he had met on the beat. In 1997, that became The Corner, a year in the life of an inner-city neighborhood, an account of a West Baltimore community trapped by drugs. The Corner turned into a 6-hour TV miniseries which won 3 Emmy Awards. Almost accidentally, David had found a new way of portraying his reporter's vision, a new way of being a journalist in America. But that was only the prelude to something more ambitious. On June 2, 2002, The Wire hit the TV screens of America. For 60 episodes, 5 seasons, Americans became engrossed in the lives of drug dealers, cops, teachers, and politicians in an American city. That city was Baltimore, but it could have been St. Louis, or Philadelphia, or New York. It was brutal, disturbing, a painful portrait of the moral landscape of late 20th century urban America. It struck the kind of chords that the best literature does, and it became a national obsession.
Remember, you heard it here, what Edward Gibbon was to the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, or Charles Dickens to the smoky, mean streets of Victorian London, David Simon is to America today.
One of The Wire's key achievements was to widen our understanding of the criminal justice system's place in today's America. David has gone on to carve other trailblazing approaches to American reality on TV. Generation Kill looked at young soldiers making their bones in the Iraq desert. Treme looked at a neighborhood recovering from the physical and moral wreckage left by Hurricane Katrina. But what may be the most important for our purposes tonight is David's critique of his own profession. It was no coincidence that some of his biggest fans and some of the most uncomfortable were journalists.
All right, people, it's 2 o'clock. I need budget lines in case anybody's threatening to commit an act of daily journalism.
The plot line and characters in the 5th and last season of The Wire were drawn from the Baltimore Sun, but it could have been anywhere. And as far as David Simon was concerned, That was the point. He dissected how the hunger for prizes, the profit-seeking chains taking over local newspapers, the reliance on the internet, and the inability or refusal to look closely at the real stories of American cities today is leading to the death of journalism as we know it. And he showed us why that matters. Just as earlier reporters felt called to action by Watergate, a new generation of journalists has grown up inspired by David Simon's work. He has paved the way for the follow-up stories. The best moral prophets are those who refuse to make us comfortable. David Simon has made a career out of making us uncomfortable. But that's only part of it. He has refused to let us turn away from America's promise.
I am very cynical about institutions and their willingness to address themselves to reform, for their willingness to do what they're supposed to do in American life. I am not cynical when it comes to individuals and people, and I think the reason The Wire is watchable, even tolerable to viewers, is that it has great affection for individuals.